last two meetings haven't had minutes.
Yeah, they were not meetings because
Not
last I did.
meetings, no minutes.
But we did have some prior minutes in the approved. We can do that next time.
Well said.
It's 5:41, we'll begin the Tilton Northfield Fire District Fire Station Building Committee meeting. Present is Kevin Kate, Lisa Martin, Tim Sattler, Paul, John, and the chief. We do have minutes to approve, but I don't believe that we are prepared to approve them unless you guys have copies.
Were they distributed?
Wow, no.
They have on the last two meetings were not actual meetings, they were work sessions because we didn't have a quorum, so they would be from, I think, April and May.
Those came from Doug,
They did.
probably, yeah. I know I read them.
Yeah, I saw them a long time ago.
519.
Okay, thank you.
It's 518 the last one.
Yeah.
Do you have the date they were sent, Paul?
519. And there's somewhere 518 also. For the 427 meeting.
427,
That would have been the oldest one, I believe.
Yeah, see, some of those don't come through. Let me make sure.
yeah. I don't know if we had approved
Yeah,
either of
yeah.
those, had we?
No, we haven't.
There's two that we need to approve? Well, we've had
So-
meetings after August.
I don't have them.
I wasn't a member on 427, so I'm not gonna.
I don't have them available, so I can't verify.
Okay, well, we can do it next.
Table
at our
until next
We'll
meeting?
table that until our next meeting then.
Sorry.
Want me to forward them to you?
Yes, you can, just in case, so I can actually catch up. It's Commissioner Silly at TNFD. Let's table. Yeah, sorry about that.
So we've been,
About that talk.
the last two meetings
Nope.
that were not
That was no more.
actual meetings for work groups, we've been working on the
Bottom.
RFQ, the request
You can
for
send it there and I'll
qualifications
forward it
and
over.
proposals, and also on
Thank you.
the scorecard, score sheet for contractors. I would suggest that we do the easy one first, review the score sheet with the edits that Lisa made from our last work session, and see if we can all agree on that. John was here, I was here, Lisa was here, the chief was here, so it's really Tim and Paul, if you have any questions regarding the weight, which is what we discussed, and then the different,
That matches up on the
Right,
following.
they should correspond to section 6, I believe, is where
Those
the,
numbers there were the final evolution.
10,
yeah, the submittal contract,
It's this one, right?
There we go.
yes. Yeah,
I have it here in paper.
You want
if
to make
it's
a
easier.
copy? I can make a copy.
yeah, I have some, one if you want to copy.
That column 3 is, we went through a few iterations, so it's this last one right there is the what's the
Chief is
final
gonna make
answer.
a couple
Okay.
copies.
Yeah.
And I did insert that into the document.
Oh, nice.
Because we needed to put it in under process for selection.
Right, because
So
we
it should
referenced it.
match, right. Insert criteria here.
What is the, I guess, explain to me what the schedule and budget management, what is that? How do you evaluate that? What is that?
Most contractors have a program or a way that they schedule and keep track of costs.
Yes.
So at certain points, we'll be checking their cost estimates and that sort of thing.
How will
So-
we know that beforehand?
Well, basically, we're evaluating how they're gonna submit, this is how we track, this is how we track our schedule, and this is how we track our budget. And I believe we have asked for history of effective schedule and budgeting for previous projects. I don't know how we'll get that, but I'm sure they'll give us some.
Look, there was something. Jim, if you visit a job site, not somebody building a house, but somebody building a commercial building, for example, they'll have done, the way I've seen it, they're usually done on a spreadsheet using bar graphs with dates as their top line. And then they'll, down the left-hand column, they'll have what their scope of work is. That has to be done by some date. So, it'll be site clearing and then excavation.
It's usually a
for-
software, and then- so they'll know, like, if they've got to install steel, well, my steel's not coming in until this date, I can install it on this date, and you can move it around. I mean, I've used the project manager one. They have more
So
sophisticated
that should be
ones.
similar by any vendor who's bidding, that type of process.
Yes, and if they don't have one, I would worry about it.
Okay.
And part of that is managing costs, because when they're billing us, they're gonna bill us for materials that are on site. So, for example, use the example that Lisa just cited was steel. So they may have a schedule for when the steel could be erected, and they arrange to have it delivered at a certain time, a day or two before. The other part of that is that, especially, Park Street will become a tight site for storing materials on. And they're gonna need to be right on top of their schedule, because they're not gonna have room to have stuff just laying around before it gets used. But if they have the steel delivered, but they're not ready for it, and it comes to the end of the month, they'll bill us for that steel that's just sitting there, not being erected.
Right.
Now we're paying for something that, yeah, we're gonna pay for it eventually, but I don't wanna pay for it in May if it doesn't get erected until July.
And then what we'll also do when they do that is they'll need to give the fire department title to those materials. So if all of a sudden they go belly up and they walk off the job, the fire department owns the steel.
Which is why
Because
you
they
pay
pay
for it
for
so
it.
closely.
Doesn't that also place the fire department in jeopardy if something is stolen from this thing?
They carry insurance.
The contractor and the fire department has insurance.
Okay.
Or they're supposed to. Well, once,
Right.
once the lawyers get a hold of them,
Right.
they'll make sure all that stuff is in there.
Yeah.
Well, as far as the questions and observations, I don't think I have any further questions of Tim's.
That's all I have.
Anybody else?
The last time what we just discussed is the weighting, basically. We shifted the fire station function,
all the
like
numbers.
20 is the highest,
Yeah.
and the architect's qualifications, because we felt those were key to a successful project.
For sure.
Well, if there's no further discussion, we can entertain a motion to accept the scorecard as.
Do you want to do a motion for that, or do you want to do the whole proposal with the scorecard attached?
In case we make changes.
I don't know, this could be an addendum to any of the other documents and
Well,
get this.
Well, this
This
is
is a
in
separate
there.
document, but it is
Yeah,
included
it is,
in the
yeah.
request for qualifications and
Okay.
proposals.
Just, I'm good either way, I'm just putting it out there.
Well, I think if we treat this as a separate document.
Okay. I'll
any
make a motion
changes
to
that
accept it.
we move. Do we
I'll
have
make a
second?
motion to accept the draft proposal or draft scorecard.
Construction management selection scorecard.
I like it.
We have a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yep.
Okay.
Before we move on, Kevin, do you mind if I interrupt?
I was gonna actually give you the opportunity to ask the questions.
Okay, great, thank you. So John, I know that you and Matt went to that seminar out west.
We did,
on
yep.
Fire station construction and design and the like, and I guess what I'd like to know is what your takeaway, you know, I looked through some of those PowerPoints.
Okay, yeah.
God, there was 1,000 of them.
There's a lot of information there.
What I would really like is both from you and Matt, kind of just an outline of what your takeaways were from it. What did you learn that would benefit all of us?
Mm-hmm. So it was incredibly beneficial. Seeing some of the things out there, talking with them. We actually sat down. I get a chance to sit down with someone for a one-on-one. Kind of, this is our hypothetical thought process of where we're going. And it was nice to talk with a industry manager who's like, you're not out of the ballpark. So kind of you're not out in left field type of thing. So cost is very hard to determine. It could be cheaper to start new, but then you're leveling and housing and stuff like that versus the add-on. Luckily we have the space. That's the big thing about it. They have a lot of people out there that will contribute and we can reach out to as resources. They might have a nominal cost for their consulting time, but there's a lot of people there that will consult where they may not be here. Definitely some of the big things for the industry is it's almost like hazmat, hot, cold, and warm zone. You have pretty much your apparatus, or they call it dirty, warm, and then your living, your business and all that stuff. So your decontamination and hygiene and all that stuff is kind of like in a transition window where you are talking about the air pressures and things like that, the drainage, the limitation of process of how people can get there.
But isn't all that going to be included in the architect
Yes.
plans?
Yep. But
So, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So is that something that, like right now, the process that we're at, the step that we're at right now, is there anything specifically that you learned that could assist us right now before
Right now,
we move to
no.
the next step?
Right now, no, I'm not very strong on that part of it.
Okay.
So right now, one of the biggest things they said is need to get the right contractor. You need to really, and that's really what this is the right contractor. And once they get on board, you work with them to get your design built early on and minimize changes from that. So you really put everything into it, because if you now try to change it down line, the cost will not necessarily be what it was. It'll be an exponential increase, just like any as-built system like that, because, oh, we got to open that wall again that was open before, things like that.
So the most important thing that you learned was pick a good contractor, or pick a good architect and contractor.
They
Is that
focus,
right?
yes, they focus more on not the design build, but they did have a section on the design build. And I'd have to dig through all these notes on that. That is all just from there. That's
With respect to anything on the scorecard, is there anything that jumps out at you that you know, after attending that
no, I mean,
we should change, or? I'm sorry.
no, I'm sorry, I keep stepping on you. Go ahead.
Well, I know we just approved this document, but do you have comment on any of that, anything on there?
No, we kind of were talking about it in the last couple of weeks with that. It's definitely people who know the business is critical, and there are like I said, these specialists who can consult if they aren't familiar with it. But a lot of the ones we've talked with, and that's one of the big heavyweights we're putting, is have you done municipal buildings and have you done fire buildings, so that they have some experience with that. Even though they may have some experience with it, the regulations are constantly changing, and the air quality percentage or vacuum or things, there's nuances that are constantly changing that we have to make sure they're up on, or know where to research that type of stuff to get caught up on that. For the vent systems, it's critical. How we store the gear and things like that. I mean, you could have
So basically what you're saying is that if our architect and our construction company contractor have built a fire station recently, in the past year or two, they're probably gonna be familiar with these regulations and have their finger on the pulse of
They
these
should.
changes.
However, 5-6 years ago, because some of them they may have experience with fire stations, but it might have been 5-6 years ago when they built the last station.
Right,
But
so
they have the
so
experience.
probably the biggest takeaway that you have right now for the step that we're at is hire a quality architect and contractor who have got experience in fire station construction,
Mhm.
recent. Okay,
Yep.
I think the grading here shows that,
Yeah.
because the two with the highest percentages are those two vendors. And I think when we were looking at some of that preliminary information they had sent to us, we were seeing contractors who had fire station experience, but the fire stations they built were from architects who were not the architect, but they had selected to put into the proposal they sent us. So, that whole,
The
making
design
sure that
developers that-
both of them are experienced.
Yeah.
Right. I would say the majority of fire stations are probably not the design-build process.
Correct.
They're usually design-build, but that doesn't mean design-build doesn't work.
Right.
And I think the way we weighted it, I think it's gonna work.
The other thing, once we hire the architect and the architect comes up with the design, we can send that design to another architect, one of these experts, and have them review it to see if they've covered everything that,
Yes.
that they should have covered. Because there's some architects in this thing that all they do is fire stations.
Right.
That's all they do, that's their whole life.
So it's kind of like that second check, hey, can you review my work? And they're not looking for every piece of it, but they're looking that yes, they're on track with where you need to. And they're not going to redesign it, but at least they kind of like that second look of
They've included everything that you should have included.
Right. Now, we're not actually hiring an architect.
No.
We are actually hiring a contractor.
who will supply their
Who
own.
will hire the architect.
But I think-
But that's why we're asking for who are you going to use and give us your qualifications.
And
We don't
who
want
is-
them changing.
And also, once you get to that, who is going to be the site manager, so your supervisor on site. You don't want we got it covered,
Yep.
because you might have Snuffy versus the guy over here who's done it before, but it's like, oh, well, his project lasted an extra 3 months, so we're going to give you this guy. No, we want to know who it is we're going to get, so we can kind of talk with them in advance, because you have some contractors who are on the ball and some that aren't, but they're still working for the same company.
so
We also want the same with the architect. Sometimes you'll get a contractor that picks an architect, but we want to make sure the actual architect from that company,
Yeah.
it has fire station, experience,
So we've relied very heavily on Lisa to get us to this point and her experience. And I don't need an answer now, or what I'd like to kind of ask you to do is just keep your finger on the pulse of the project and flag anything that, is exposed by what you learned in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're gonna have to rely on you and Matt to do that, so if you don't, I mean, and if there are any takeaways that you think we all should know, then by all means, you're now the instructor, you're the teacher. So don't hesitate to speak up and say, hey, wait a second, that's not a good idea, and this is, I think it was the whole purpose of sending you, so.
Well, and we also have a great resource with the chief.
Yeah, Chief has been to a previous
Two-
as well, so now
Two
you have a
fire
third
station
person.
construction projects.
Yeah.
And I've been to this design conference as well, and another one previous to that, so.
And just so you know, this was developed with the AIA contract in mind. When we did the scope, it's verbatim of AIA 14, so we
The
didn't
industry
really-
expectations,
Yeah,
so.
that's what, so we didn't, that's not something we made up. No.
And this document is, I don't think it's really critical piece of the equation, even less so than our scorecard, because this is going to be advertised and it will get us interested parties. Then what? Then that's when the critical mass starts.
Right.
What do we do with those interested parties? This is just the boilerplate, if you will, to get those interested parties to submit.
Right, and submit the consistent information so we can compare.
Right.
That's a big thing, and then be able to look at what they're offering, and that's where you start breaking it down with the initial
Right, and that's
assessments,
why we
and then
did this,
this.
so that we had a way to say, okay, everybody better focus on those topics, because we're gonna score you based on those topics. Whereas before, we didn't quite have that finite.
Yeah. And the companies we've heard from in the past are reputable companies around the area. I don't know how much experience they have with fire departments and things like that, but I've worked with quite a few of them back when I was doing electrical days, and they are reputable names that we got going. So that is it's not Jim Smith's company with 2 workers that
Always wanted to build a fire station.
Sure, yeah, I can do that, no problem. It's a garage, easy. And that's one of the biggest things that these are not garages.
No.
Even the garage space there's safety procedures and things like that with the doors, your spacing and all that. The air venting systems, depending on which way, although the magnetic ones are much better now. Normally we have the exhaust cuff that are air actuated to seal. The problem is they get ripped off quite often, or they don't get put on. They now come with magnetic boots. So the magnet goes on, magnet falls off. That's one of the newer things I like. And then you're not playing with that biovent air pressure thing that's always messing up. Some cheap things that,
Not cheap.
no, I'm sure.
Because I wasn't here last week.
But
I'm sorry.
the air capture system is the way to go. NFPA doesn't approve
Yeah.
those
The building
circulators,
vents and, yeah,
air exchanges, because
it doesn't get it
it's
out.
still in the air.
Right.
That's a nice supplemental. So you have this as your primary, and then you still can have those, and because you can use that as extraction from the vehicle bays and part of your extraction from your gear storage and your decon area. So that way you're kind of drawing the air out all the time, the atmospheric air, but you're still getting the major contaminant piece
No?
gone direct.
Stuck in the door.
Oh, yeah, it's because we didn't unlock it. Now it's locked.
Oh, you want it unlocked?
Yeah, well, it's a public meeting.
Can you unlock it?
I can, I
If
just
I lock
didn't do
it?
it. I have a key, it was already in there, so I figured I'd not reinvent the wheel.
Paul, you have to.
Yeah, because I wasn't here last meeting, and again, I apologize for missing it. Where do we stand on this document? Has it been completely reviewed to the last line?
That's what is supposed to happen today.
So-
We did go through it
Yes,
in the
it has.
workshops,
Right.
but not in an actual meeting.
So these, you put these delineators, the dates in here.
Yes, because
And-
those were workshops,
Right.
and so I figured, okay, I'll show I started with the base document that we had worked on the previous meeting, the actual meeting.
Sure.
And then what I did was I used track changes so you could see what I deleted and added and all of that.
So
the
you-
barn means I added it, you'll see the deleted. And then I gave everybody a clean copy because trying to review something
I
with,
got the,
you got 2 of them, right? One without all the lines, right?
That's one, then there's another one.
So the other
I thought
one,
the other one was the one that had all the deletions deleted, and I wanted, or changes
okay.
made. I wanted
Yeah.
to see what the changes were on this one, but
right.
And then this is the finished document.
do you mind if I look at it real quick?
Right, that way you're looking at a clean document without a million lines and
But
comments.
these are the same.
They're the same document,
Gotcha.
one
That's
one
what I
accepted
thought.
the
Thank you.
changes and one
Right.
was showing you the changes. I could flip back and forth. Other than there was one when after I made the PDF, I realized I had to change something over here. I changed them in both documents.
Oh.
There is 2 files, which I normally don't like to have.
Yeah.
I thought, I'm not going through that again. So, I mean, in order to bring this to
Commissioners.
commissioners and the attorney, we would have to basically make that decision today. I did have a couple of edits that I do want to do, and it's more for clarity, it's more to clean it up. Like on the, where I say a mandatory pre-proposal meeting will be held on, and I put X's.
Yeah.
I should actually put the word date, so that no matter who reads it, they know, oh, that's what gets inserted there. The same with the, because I have time, and I ought to on the same thing put date.
Got it.
And I'll leave it highlighted, because obviously, when we go to issue it, that
Oh,
will,
okay. You want to actually
will
follow
work,
it, yeah.
right. I think I have March 2024 highlighted, just because we'll have to confirm that after, because,
Well, we won't know the date
We
of the
won't.
annual meeting until
no, I just said, in March, I didn't do it in
January or
actual date.
February.
No, it's in March.
It'll be in March.
I can tell you right now, unless
Yeah.
the commissioners decide to change the date.
No, because it falls right in line with all the other painful meetings.
It will be 2024, we'll get to 2024.
But I don't think we need to put the day itself in this document, right?
No, you can.
Just leave it as the month.
Yeah.
First Monday after, so it'll be March 18th. First Monday after the second Tuesday.
Unless they
2024?
change.
Yep,
Okay, that's what was throwing me off. I was on 2023.
son's birthday. It was almost the St. Patty's baby.
March 18th, you said?
March 18th.
Yeah.
That's
So
when-
I'm gonna
that's-
leave that though,
that's-
just as March.
Yeah, you can leave it, the commissioner, because it's the bulk of it, and there could be a little nuance and stuff that
Right.
I'll talk over for the commissioners.
And then on
That's
page
okay.
6, I gotta get rid of the words insert criteria here, because somehow I left it in.
Just because I don't have that
Yeah.
completely edited one. This is an addition, right?
Yes, we added to coordinate, we are going to need a project representative, an owner's rep throughout construction. So we put that in to make the contractor and architect aware that we are going to have one, and they need to coordinate with that person,
Okay.
which is a separate entity that we'll have to hire.
Mhm.
Somebody that keeps track of the work, the pay, the pay applications.
It's essentially a clerk of the works for the customer.
And that will be, that person will be hired as part of the project, or will that be?
The commissioners will hire somebody, advertise for that position, will hire somebody, and that person
How does it get paid?
out of the construction
contract.
out of the overall cost of the project. Whether it's, funds that have already been set aside or whatever, and it'll probably be in the $50,000 to $70,000 range, I would say.
Yeah, because it's not a long-term, it's a contractor, it's not an
I'm
employee,
guessing
so
it's, I'm
it's not.
guessing it's gonna be about a year long, and that's probably, doesn't mean they're there every day,
Yeah,
but they're probably there 2 or 3 times a week.
But that won't be part of the operating budget, that'll be
No,
part of
that'll
this
be part
project.
of the construction
Construction
costs,
warrant.
however the commissions decide to.
Yes,
Separate
so
that
it could
out.
come out of the fund that
I
we
mean,
have.
you could do it in the operating budget, but you,
I'm just afraid that if we throw 100 grand into this project for that position, that's adding 100 grand to the project, and if we only use 50 of it, you always get that tap on the shoulder, where's the other 50? So,
it's certainly something that the commissions can discuss how they want to do it. It's usually part of the project cost, but you can separate it out and put it in the operating budget and say this is what it's.
I'm just curious if there are other ways, I mean, what are the options? I'm not trying to steer it in
Yeah,
one
no.
direction.
It could be a separate warrant article.
I think have it as it, but it could be as up to, the same thing, and
Right.
then that excess money would then go back in the general fund.
Right.
And if you have very precise line accounting, then it helps, and I'm one of those that's very nitpicky about lines of accounting. It's like, even though we only use $2 of this, doesn't mean that the other 98 goes into something else. That other 98 should go into back in the general fund.
Well, how
That's
are
how I
you paying
track
for the
it.
whole project? You don't know how much right now, and you still won't know at the end.
Right.
You need a contingency, right?
But that should be a small percentage. I know the school did 10%
10%.
contingency is what they did.
Minimum.
Yeah.
I I
Yeah.
would lean more towards
15, yes. But that's what you're seeing at minimum is a 10%
But you don't necessarily
contingency.
spend that.
No.
So however
Right.
it goes back
Anything left
It
over
should
would
be
go
the
back to the
same
general
thing.
fund.
to the
Well,
general.
contingencies
Well,
are
does
part
it-
of the bond
Does it go
cost.
back to the general fund, it just doesn't get spent?
Right.
Right. Well, what,
Right. So shouldn't the owner's representative be part of the bond cost also?
That's one way of doing it.
Yeah, that seems to make sense. It's tied to the project.
right,
You don't want to really well, that's my personal opinion, is you wouldn't separate it out. It's part of the project. If the project doesn't go, you don't need an owner's rep.
Right, but we also have that fund that
started building up, yes.
For design.
Right, so the warrant article's gonna say that to build a fire station at this amount of
Right.
money with this much coming out of that account and the ability to bond up to
Mhm.
whatever the difference is. and
Right.
Lawyers will
Somebody's smarter
figure out
than
the
us is
exact
gonna write
word.
that warrant
Right.
article.
Right. And the best part is if you can spell out a little bit of the details of what it is, rather than just having that $1, this much for rough construction. And I mean, you don't want to be down to the nail, but you could do rough construction, to include mechanical, electrical, plumbing.
That might be
That
part
won't
of
be
the
in the warrant
presentation.
article.
That won't be in the warrant article.
It won't be
but
in the warrant
a
article, but people will
presentation,
ask,
you
yes.
can- In a
People will ask part
presentation
of
on
the
a screen, you
presentation.
can say this
Correct.
much for the building,
Yes.
this much
The
for.
warrant article.
Warrant
much
article is the
smaller.
overall
I
number.
Right,
think it's on,
right.
Exactly.
it's on page 6.
And- But the presentation, you do want to have that, your hard costs, your soft costs, impacts on future operating costs. Because now utilities, because
Section 6.
utilities might have been better, but now we may have to increase the heating space because it's more
Do those
space
say the
heating,
same thing?
things like that. So those are impacts on future costs or cost savings, because now we're gonna go with
Right.
all LED lighting and all that, which will have a less electrical impact, so the operating costs will go
I'm reading
down
them,
by
and they look the same,
0.05%.
but that's the
Those are all
order.
parts of what you
They're
wanna
part
have
of
in
your
there.
sales.
One prior
your
to
presentation.
execution, one following execution.
Right, let's see if we can get back to our task at
So
hand.
on 6 of 10, I'm gonna get rid of the words insert criteria here, down on B. You look at that one.
Can I ask a question, Lisa, please, because you're the expert and I'm the
I'm
idiot.
not an expert.
In section 6,
Section 6, yes.
G and H, can you explain the difference?
Yes. We had decided that we're gonna look at 2 parts of the fee. The first fee is definitive and it will be a lump sum fee. So do I say that?
You
Lump sum
don't.
fee.
You said it somewhere.
It's in the submittal. Yeah, fee proposal, separate. A lump sum fee for work prior to the execution of the design build amendment. Okay, maybe, but I probably ought to say it up here too. Well,
Well, you
I
haven't,
gotta-
it's clear to me, and she, but perhaps that's because it's part of this discussion, that we want, that is gonna be a separate submittal.
right. And
fee
it's in
for
the,
the-
it's in the submittal content. That
Mhm.
The first thing, they can define it and they can say, we think, they know, we've already got a site, we've got, their expertise is gonna define what they need for money to design it far enough to be able to get a guaranteed maximum price in the next phase of the project, which that goes to the developers. So this
So you're
first
describing
part
G.
will not, yes. If G will not go to the voters, that's what we hope that the money we have will cover. If it doesn't, then yes, you'll have to go to the voters in 2023.
So part of the submittal from the contractor is going to be, how much is that, what will that value of that work be?
Correct.
And at that point, so once the design build is accepted, then H comes into effect, is that
Correct.
correct? And that's gonna be the bond.
Yes, now we can't determine that number and neither can the contractor. So what we all decided was, and if you go to page, and maybe we ought to put it here too, if you go to page, I guess it's 8 or 9, depending on whether you're using the one that had the sections. We decided to give us a design builder fee expressed as a percentage of construction costs. So if it's, $10 million, what is your fee? And that gives us basically, or what is the percentage? And we'll be able to compare percentage, we use this contractor, we're gonna pay
Is that
3%,
typically-
we're gonna,
Is that-
it's not typically 1%, but we discussed this in great detail, that it's okay if it's 1%. A lot of times they'll give us their general requirements, and it's a cost, and then they give us their profit, their markup, and all of that, but it's usually a percentage of the construction cost. I
So we're
think
not
we
asking for
determined-
anything unusual.
No.
No, we looked at all those percentages and said, we don't really care what your overhead costs are for your office person that makes copies. We don't really care how much you're billing us for some portion of your insurance costs. We don't care.
Right.
What we want to know is, what's the bottom line number?
To us.
Right.
2%? Is it 5%? We don't care how you get to the 5%.
Right.
Because it really doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. What matters is you're going to bill us 5% of the overall cost
Of the
project.
construction cost.
Right.
Right, after the design, the initial design phase.
So I guess,
Right.
Paul,
There
the
is
easiest way to
design
look
costs in there,
at
but
G
they don't put it in
and
that
G and
percent.
H is that G is what the work that is going to be done in order to get us drawings that we can will then get us to a guaranteed maximum construction cost that will then be brought to the voters.
The votes, right.
Right, in
And
previous
H.
things, we called it pre-bond, but it's not defined well. If you look at the design-build contract, they have two phases of the project. One is work before the design-build amendment and work after the design-build.
Well, I guess
And it's
one of
defined.
and you answered this, but I'll just reiterate it so you can tell me if I'm messed up. But I was struggling with G as far as how we're going to pay for that. If we don't have the bond yet, how are we going to pay for G? But you just described it as out of the fund.
We have $100,000
Right.
to pay for it.
And by the time we get there, we'll almost be at the next annual meeting in 2023, where the question will be asked to add another $100,000 to that fund,
Build the
assuming.
Or some dollar.
Yeah,
Some
add an
amount.
amount to it. I mean, it's logical to add more in if the public approves it, because either way, it's going to be used towards the process, whether it's just going to shave a little bit more off the warrant bond if it's not used, or
Well, I think it's gonna be a direct contract with the contractor, so it's gonna be a definitive value. However, there may be some change orders in that process as well. So you wouldn't, depends on what, I don't know what
So-
pricing will come in.
so the
I would
design
hope
build
that we
fee
have enough with
is-
100,000, but if
The
we
initial
don't,
fee, and then that's the.
we're gonna,
So
we're
the
gonna
initial
know by
fee-
the time the meeting.
So the initial
comes
fee
around.
is going to be a dollar amount.
Yes,
What, they're going to say $75,000 or
Right.
$60,000 or whatever, and then H, that fee is going to be a percentage.
Gotcha.
now, that doesn't mean just because you're a low bidder that you will get selected, but I actually have a way that we will, the 20%, I mean, we can evaluate and compare the fees in our spreadsheet. Generally, it'll be a percentage of the low bidder, or there's a formula, and it'll fall in line, but when we get there, we'll do it. How's that? And it-
Kind of like the difference between average and median.
median, right.
yes.
Right. And then that will determine the scoring for just that line. They could be the highest bidder, but they have the best grade, then they're gonna get the project.
Right.
It's not, we're not bidding.
Right, it's not an absolute
not an
guarantee that
actual
the
bid, but it
lowest
gives
bidder
us
gets it.
something
It's
to-
the best value.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable to look at fee, but not make it the
Only.
only.
You know, saying the bitterness of poor quality remains long after the sweetness of low prices forgotten.
That's right.
And there's a reason why they were a little bitter.
Yes.
They forgot something.
Yes.
Or they took shortcuts and things like that, absolutely. Instead of doing it in MC, I'm gonna do it in Romex.
I think the middle school is a good example of a little bit. Don't have
Well,
to
the
put it-
roof.
Well, there's a lot of other problems over the years.
Well, it was a pre-engineered building, so it was cheap,
And built on a swamp.
so.
Mind the details.
But it is, what, 40 years old?
It's outlived its life, its useful life, so it's time to replace.
It's almost 74.
You know,
74.
they're not, but it's still
We're
standing.
not building middle schools, we're building a fire station.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And
Yeah, 15
the
years.
downtown station is definitely outlived its useful life.
100 years.
But it's historic,
It's hysteric.
it's hysteric.
And the town of Tilton can use it as a museum.
They could.
Good.
More likely use it as a parking lot.
But commissioners can decide whatever they would choose to do with them.
I want it off the books as fast as possible.
Can I ask a question with respect
Get
to
rid of that
this
liability.
Section 8?
And what does it mean, the Tilton Northfield Fire Department Common, New Hampshire? Is that
Which,
Section A,
section A in the contract?
Yeah.
this one?
Yeah.
May at any, this actually got taken from their proposal for their, some other project. In other words, okay, I guess if it doesn't say, you have to say New Hampshire.
No.
No,
that's-
it
It
does
should
not.
just say TNFD, no the.
Yeah, that's the other
Intent
thing.
of, oh, you know what? We did this at one point,
We did. we
and I
went through-
missed them. I gotta get rid of all the thes.
Yeah.
I missed them. Sorry about that. See, this is the final, like, formatting and those kind of things that I gotta do before we actually hand it all. So it would say TFND may at any time terminate the services and or contract with the design builder for our units. I'll do a word
You
search
do
for
do a search
for
For
the TN, yeah, I'll try to catch them all, I can't
Or
promise.
do TNFD and then delete the word in front of
And-
it.
Yeah, because that'll find it.
That might work.
Yeah. Yeah. Or I can look for the whole, yeah, whatever. And then look for the whole thing. with
Actually, you
G.
might be able to type the whole thing in, the space TNFD.
Yeah, and I'll find it,
Yeah.
yeah, and then I'll be able to delete it.
Okay, thank
Oh,
you.
I think that's just the type. I'm missing some quotation marks too. So I will try to catch formatting things.
So,
But let's go back to your point, because you were confused, maybe other people may be confused. Should we put design builders lump sum fee? It's pretty easy for me to put the word lump sum under G.
I like lump sum up front.
Design builder
and this-
lump sum fee.
If we're going to include this as part of the document, on this table, it's called the initial fee.
Yeah,
So do we
we are
wanna-
not including that in the RFQ.
Oh,
That's our review sheet after, so we probably didn't even
I
have to
thought
vote on
you
it.
said earlier.
No,
You are
it's-
attaching
We've got
yours.
it, it's here.
It's here.
It's
It's
in the
listed.
document.
Okay,
G
gotcha.
does say lump sum fee under the criteria.
Under the criteria, well, under the criteria, it does not right now. but
It does.
Oh, it does under, oh, yes, under the process,
You're right.
process for,
It says
Yeah,
lump
and
so-
then it says
sum
design,
fee.
build,
So what you're suggesting, Lisa, is in the actual text of G that we include lump sum?
Yes.
I think we should as well.
and then also I'm gonna correct, I should be consistent. I've got capitalized design builder, and I don't think I have that anywhere else. Did you see that? Look at
Let's make that design build
Build.
fee, because that's what
that.
it's
Design
called.
build fee,
That's what it's called in this table also.
right.
This happens to be last time too.
She has the pages at the bottom now, though.
I know, but
Yeah, well, and I'm
I
looking at
think
the one
that it's in a different place than it really is.
Yeah,
I'm
see
like,
there-
go back, I'm like, where is that?
And I don't have that.
You know what,
version.
it's
I just
everywhere.
have-
There's- We either have to have it all capitalized or not.
Correct.
I think it's better off to not, but I guess it's everywhere. I'm gonna have to go
You can go find and change.
find, yes, where it's got capitalized in
Find, replace.
some areas, yeah. Yeah, and. So, and actually in G and H, I could probably I'll leave it as design builders. Or I could, the first one I could say lump sum fee.
I think G should say take
Just
out
start
design
design
builders.
lump sum fee.
And put lump
And
sum.
H should say design build fee.
I agree.
That way it's consistent.
Yeah. And should I say based on percentage? Repeat in the criteria, because the only other place you see it is over
You
here.
should, it should be the
Yes.
same.
Design builder's fee.
Yeah, that way there's no misinterpretations. I mean,
Expressed
they're gonna, their person, they're gonna have someone in the
Yes.
office that's gonna look through that proposal
Right,
100% through, and then they're gonna tell the bidder, hey, this is what you need to grab. I mean, it might be the bidder, but half the time, your estimator and this one and this, and whoever's running it. And
So you're changing H to include the,
expressed as a percentage of construction cost. Same as the bullet, the item, that they're gonna submit these in separate envelopes. In a separate envelope.
The fees will be, yes.
Yes. That's what we talked about.
There'll be both fees in one envelope. That's the way it's written anyway.
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make it.
okay, so here under B, 7B,
Yes.
you have insert criteria.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
getting
you've
rid of
already
the words.
scratched it.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's why I said I missed it
Gotcha.
when I did it, but we gotta get rid of those
God,
words.
Stop it.
So, all right, let's press it. Just see. One electronic copy of the fee proposal. I guess that's okay. Over on the submittal requirements.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just looking at terminology. I'm gonna look at formatting a little bit too. Just gonna get rid of the words in that fee proposal, it's just lump sum fees. And before it goes to print, we're gonna make sure these links work.
Yeah,
Validate.
If what works?
I already talked to
did.
Kathy about it. Those will be put on our website, so they can get them directly off the website, because those were links for an email that probably should have stayed active, but somehow they.
Right, because I didn't download them, so I don't have them now.
Was it my old email?
I don't know.
It was an old email, and I thought, shoot, I didn't save those. And I went and clicked, and I'm like, okay, I don't have, so we don't have them. Well, I guess we will.
Well,
We will when they're up on the
Yeah,
website. So should we say the following documents are available from previous studies and can be found on?
the TNFD website.
There's one of those dots again.
um,
Is that TNFD or TNFD?
On
TNFD, not
TNFD's website. And then what we should do is give them the website address.
Yes.
Which is already.
www.tnfd.org.
Now, will it be in a sub-file or will it be on the home
.org.
page?
It'll be on the home page on the right-hand side somewhere, unless we redesign the web page.
Oh, trust me, I would love to have that done.
Oh, yeah.
Well, this whole
I
RFQ
just don't
will
wanna
be
pay
on the
for it
website,
dramatically.
right? This
I'm working on
whole
it.
document will be
Should
on the
be.
website, right?
The
Yes.
document itself will also be on the website.
Yes,
So you would
As a
put
link.
this.
as
also
one of our
there.
posting locations.
Okay.
Right, because when it's advertised,
We have to hit
Gonna have-
multiple locations.
it's going to have to say where that document is,
Yeah.
the tick is.
So I'll get rid of, in this document, I'm gonna still put the
I would
list,
list what they are,
but get rid of the links.
correct,
And just say the following documents are available
right.
on TNF, on TNFD's website, www.tnfd.org.
Because I believe we have to post 2 sites, or 2 locations, print and,
Yeah, we have to advertise in 2 newspapers, has to be on the bulletin boards, has to be on our website.
so we'll send it out to the different town halls, Tilton and Northfield, and they
Yeah.
can put it in their notices they go out. It'll be on our webpage, And then the one that's one Mecco and Maconian Daily Sun, or do those not small, they're not big enough?
So your
Concord
intention is
Concord
to
Monitor, well, actually, I prefer
Is
the
to
Manchester
revise that,
because it's cheaper.
and then,
Send it
Concord
to
Monitor.
us, and he's gonna bring it to.
Concord Monitor,
and
they charge the
are
most
we
for
supposed to
advertising.
vote on it before he brings it
Yes.
to the commission?
Yes,
Yes, I won't, I can't bring it without.
right, we
This
should vote on it
The
with the
advertising
agreement
is
that I'm
not
gonna,
gonna
we're gonna
be
make the
too
changes that I just.
With the
we
grammatical
discussed.
adjustments.
So I'll go home right from this meeting and just
Maconian
do
Daily
it.
Sun
Tomorrow
is
morning, and then send it to Kathy or the chief, and they'll bring it to the meeting tomorrow.
I mean, I'll distribute it to everybody anyway and say, these are the changes we decided at the meeting last night.
See, my only issue, and it's not a big deal, but it's like, if I'm voting to approve a document, I want the final document in hand. You know, I want to see what it is.
Right.
But I don't want to put you in a predicament where you're
This
going to
is not the
scurry.
final document. This is a draft to be sent to the attorneys and
Right.
the insurance company.
Okay,
It's not going, they will have their
We've had
edits.
the DRA and the
So
attorney
essentially,
approved
what
it.
we're voting on is this draft.
Draft
And with the
proposal.
agreement, I'm gonna put what we just discussed today. It's not the final agreement that will go out for RFQ.
Right. So
So
essentially,
we still have another shot at it.
yeah, so essentially we're, pending we all agree on the content, we could vote on that tonight. To accept it based on the content with the adjustments to grammatical. And that way, we
Just
know,
as we do with minutes. when we
Correct.
say we accept the minutes with the.
with the adjustment.
Right.
So with the grammatical adjustment, so she's not changing content at all, it's just removing the does. And then we can submit that to the commissioners, who will then understand, can you even put a watermark in it?
Yeah.
As a draft?
Yeah, draft watermark?
Sure.
And then we know that it's
And
to
I'll
going to the
date it.
commissioners, who are then sending, approving the draft proposal. And if they say yes, then they're gonna send it to their review people, which is DRA and lawyers. Guidance back from them, in case, oh, you can't do that, or you can't do that. And then I will speak to the commissioners, like, okay, if they agree with it, send it back down to the committee before the commissioners do the final approval.
is anyone from this committee going to present that to the commissioners tomorrow night?
Me?
You're-
I mean, I don't know the availability of someone else, but
They probably won't
Is
have
it-
time to review it during the meeting, right? And then approve to send it to whomever, right? Or do they need, they need to, right?
Well,
I don't know.
the commissioners are the ones that ultimately are responsible for anything that this fire district does.
we'll put them, and they can, as soon as Kathy gets it out, she can send it to us and can review it in advance, and if they're comfortable with it, they reviewed it and they're comfortable with it, it could be signed off on to send to legal and, or,
Well, again, with the understanding that this is a draft,
yeah,
and they're gonna have a chance, at least one more chance to look at it.
That's
before-
true.
So is our work done as of tonight? Or, I'm
Until it
trying
comes
to,
back.
I'm trying to figure out where we fit in from now on, because if we're submitting this as a committee to the commissioners, and they're submitting it to lawyers and whoever, it's gonna come back to them. Do we have to review it, or does the commissioners have the final say, and there's no need for us to do anything else?
Does the committee want-
We need to pick, well, we need to pick dates eventually, but we can't do that until it comes back from
I would think that it would depend on the commissioner's review of what comes back as to whether they.
The lawyer is gonna look at it, and he's gonna require certain wording probably in
Yes.
there. The Primex is gonna look at it and probably gonna
Gonna look at
require
values.
certain wording or sections in there, because we always have this in there, and it's to protect you.
Right.
So where does this group fit in
So
moving
what-
forward, is my question.
Well, once the document is finished, then we'll figure out a date to advertise it and stuff like that, and recommend that to the commissioners, and then the commissioners will say, yes, that's a good date, and it'll go on.
Right,
And then
and
so-
then we're gonna pick a pre-proposal meeting date.
Right.
Then we're gonna, we'll get back all of the proposals, or we'll get questions too,
Yeah.
from the contractors.
Who's
That-
filling this in, the commissioners or us?
We are.
the committee.
When, we're gonna do that as part of the interview process in our review of the proposals from there.
Okay, so we've got a ton of work ahead of us.
Yes.
We do.
But that's after everybody submits their
On-
proposals.
Right.
That,
Yes, understood, yeah. Okay, so, once this is filled out, it's presented to the commissioners. The commissioners actually have the authority to select the design.
It's gonna be based
It'll
on
be a
recommendations.
recommendation from this committee to the commissioners. And the commissioners can either accept that recommendation
to somebody else.
or do it somebody else and say, time out, we're, for whatever reason, we're putting a hold on this.
Right.
Yeah.
Our work is really just getting started.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Now, while the month, it's 1 month or is it 60 days? For,
Advertising?
yeah.
It's a month.
Month,
It's-
30
So
days.
for that 30-day period, I mean, yes, it's a little bit of a lull, but the committee here still can meet to schedule your working group of this and kind of have that stuff in place ahead of time, so that when those proposals do come in, you could start scheduling like a week or two after to move forward with the interview portion, or however.
Or you could just keep the dates that we have in place, the first, or second, or whatever,
Right.
Mondays.
Yeah.
And then, when they comes back, we just resume a meeting at that point.
But, either or. It's just there is a lot of planning, like you said, going over that and some of the other score sheets and stuff that
Right.
taking advantage of that.
How long will it take to get back from lawyers and Primex?
Why don't you ask the lawyers in Primex?
I mean,
Sometimes,
in general terms, 2
so
months,
Primex,
3 months?
generally a week or so. A lawyer, it's been, some of the documents I've sent to him has taken more than 3 weeks.
Is it Paul for that too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, but that's not unreasonable.
No.
No, so
So about-
our expectation is that we should have this document completed and ready to be published by the end of August.
Okay,
And that's
All right.
tight, because now we're in the middle
Yeah,
of
that's-
July,
yeah.
so
Right.
that's
6
the,
weeks
that's the
away.
best
Yeah.
scenario.
Right.
But
Okay.
that's
And
our
then
goal.
we'll have
It's 3 meetings.
our date for the pre-proposal meeting over at Park Street, which will be part of this document,
and all of the contractors will be there for that meeting.
if they choose to
They
be.
choose
Well,
to
we
be.
made it mandatory.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Don't
so
show up,
If you don't
can't
show
bill.
up, we
Right.
really, you don't have enough interest in designing our fire station, we really don't want you.
Right.
That's my attitude.
It doesn't, yeah, it could be a representative of their company.
Somebody
The reason I asked that was because I don't want individual meetings with contractors. I want, if somebody has a question, everybody hears the question,
That's
everybody
exactly
hears
what
the
we're gonna do.
answer.
And we were gonna give them, what, a week after
Yeah, we're
the...
gonna, there's a date we have to pick that says all questions must be submitted by a certain date in writing.
Right,
I
and then
believe
the
that's-
questions will get answered, and the question and the answer will go out to everybody.
Yeah.
In writing,
Yes.
Yeah.
okay.
Yes.
As transparent as we can for it.
Thought I saw that somewhere, but we gotta, now that you're
Let's
saying
make sure
that,
it's in there.
Let's make sure. We've got the proposal,
I remember
I remember talking about it.
now that you say
Now let's double check. Appointments. Oh, I thought I saw it. Oh, it's actually the very last thing, and maybe we need to put it somewhere, additional instructions. There'll be a meeting, it's actually it's a repeat, and I hate repeating things. But it also says questions should be, that we welcome questions on or before, and we're gonna put in a date.
What page is that on?
The very last page,
11 on mine.
where it says additional, yeah, it's additional
Numbers,
instructions.
section 11, section C.
Yep.
What I don't like is where you say something twice, and we've done it numerous times in this document.
I think that should be,
up in the first paragraph, and where it said mandatory
yes,
pre-proposal meeting.
yes.
Okay, so I'll take those words, welcome questions. I don't know that we want to say welcome. You, all questions shall be submitted in writing before.
Right. And they're all gonna go together.
Two before,
All questions.
Yes, to Catherine, not to any.
Shall be submitted in writing, because we need to say in writing. We
Yeah.
don't, she doesn't want phone calls.
no,
Well, it
She
says
can't answer the
questions
questions
should
either.
be in writing.
Should.
Yeah,
and an email is sufficient.
Should or shall, there's a big difference.
there is.
That's why,
Yeah, I think
or just will,
Just
Well,
like
it
shall
belongs-
or may.
does it belong right up here?
may or
I think it belongs in,
What?
Shall or may is not,
yeah, that's
all
different. Shall or
questions
should.
shall be submitted in writing.
But there's a difference between shall and may. Just
Right.
like shall and should.
Should I on or prior, on or before,
Or by.
by?
You're putting this on
By
pre-proposal meeting?
Yes.
Yes,
And that will
period,
be reiterated at the meeting.
Yes,
yes.
yep, if there's any follow-up questions, then again, by this date, submit them.
And then we say, should we, and also in that same thing, say, responses to questions will be provided to all.
It's
Or
not there
we're
now.
getting, we're not, yeah, we're getting,
And I just,
I don't think it's necessary.
I don't think it's necessary, because then you're trapping yourself to something where someone just has a very
yeah,
simplistic question that really, okay, you ask the question, then we have,
well,
and
they're
we,
gonna ask questions at the meeting. and
Right, and that's the
somebody-
thing, is we
I
can say at the
would hope
meeting.
that there'll be somebody like secretary or something taking notes for that meeting, no?
Well, it's gonna have, it
we'll
will,
record
we'll
it.
record it,
Oh, okay.
plus it'll be a meeting.
yes. Because all the body will be there. And it will be actioning, so it technically should be a meeting,
Will it be a commissioners meeting or a committee meeting?
No.
committee meeting.
Depends on will the commissioners know. Because if all three commissioners are there.
If all three commissioners are going, then they can post it as a commissioners meeting, even if they're not saying anything, just because they're in the same place in case they offer any input. Which they shouldn't offer any input, because it's the committee here relying on it.
We can post
All right,
it,
so,
it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
so I think with the number of changes on that document, I would feel more comfortable
Reviewing it one more time.
reviewing it, which.
Okay. That would be our next
that's-
meeting.
Well.
I'll make all the
let's-
changes and I'll email it to
Well,
everybody.
let's talk about it, because
Yeah.
if our plan was to give it to them tomorrow night, the commissioners, right? Can we still do that if you distribute that tomorrow
Mhm.
and it's reviewed, say by noon time or whatever, we can all vote yea or nay by email, and then,
I don't know. that
Do we have to post 24 hours for a subcommittee? Because that would be a quorum if we did that.
all right, okay.
I don't know.
So what we're gonna do, well, I'm sorry, I don't wanna.
Oh, go ahead.
No, no.
What I'd like to do then is vote on it tonight with the changes pending that Lisa will make. And then if you could distribute it, and then tomorrow night, if I see anything in it that I don't like or that wasn't what we've discussed, I'll come to the commissioners meeting tomorrow night.
Yep.
So,
Well,
Yep.
you can read the document with the changes that we've made right now. And
Right.
we can agree on, and we can vote on that.
Oh, and we could even submit those to the, if you want. Is that what you're saying?
Commissioners-
Submit,
Commissioners don't want to see all the changes, they
No.
just want to see the document.
Yeah.
well, they would see, we could submit the one that,
Because they're relying on the committee, all they need to see is what the committee's
Final-
final thought
final
was.
draft.
They don't need to see how they got to it. If there's a
Okay.
question of how they got to it, then they can ask the question, but otherwise,
right,
that's
we have
kind
a
of why we
record
built
of
the
it
committee.
for every-
Right.
But for purposes of approving this draft document to give to the commissioners. And I understand your concern, Paul, because there were a number of changes, that, not just grammatical. We can read it, or Lisa can read it with the changes that you noted.
Because after hearing it also,
And we can
now
vote.
we're picking up on what we're hearing
But
and what the
we
public would
can
be
vote
hearing.
on that.
Yeah,
Okay, I just need to check. Some of my scribblies, I just said, oh, insert this.
Yeah, see, that's kind of my concern,
Yep.
is what we intend and what ends up may mistakenly be different.
yeah.
Or if you just photocopy it, we can each read it ourselves.
Read through it and pick out.
and let
Yeah,
you-
the only
if you don't
major,
wanna-
the only changes we made were to get rid of the in front of TNFD and I've got a line I've got to insert, or what do you call it? Here's my format.
Well, why don't we do this, Lisa, if you
And
don't
then I can
mind?
tell you the ones that we actually made changes to. They're not that much, I can read the changes.
Yeah, why don't you start at the beginning and just
Sure.
highlight the change instead
Sure.
of reading everything?
Sure, okay. Basically, we changed, are we ready to do that right now?
Yes, sure.
Okay. Item 2, pre-proposal meeting. A mandatory pre-proposal meeting will be held on, the word, it's going to say date, and it'll be highlighted yellow, at time, at the project site at 149 Park Street, Northfield, New Hampshire. All questions shall be submitted in writing by, it should be, say to Kathy, right?
Yeah, her email, all that. Just put the Tilton Northfield business
It
manager,
already says it's here.
her title.
It already says it at the very
Administrative
end.
manager.
Yeah, but if you just put business manager up front, and then they have her reference at the back.
Administrative manager.
Administrative manager, okay.
Okay, all questions shall be submitted in writing to TNFD
Admin manager,
administrative
and that way her information's at the back.
manager by date. That's the only one that has a substantive change. Under 3, where we have the X's, I'm going to insert the word date. Next page, I don't have anything. Page 3, I don't have any changes.
March 24th.
I was leaving it that way,
Okay.
highlighted, but it'll stay as is. Page 4, no changes. Page 5, no changes. Page 6, item G, will now say lump sum fee for work prior to the execution of the design-build amendment. See section 5 for scope and section 9 for submittal requirements. H will now say design-build fee, and that design-build will not be capitalized. Expressed as a percentage of construction cost, in parentheses, for work following the execution of the design-build amendment. See section 5 for scope and section 9 for submittal requirements. On page 6, under item B,
Oh,
I'm just getting rid of insert criteria here because I did insert the criteria. Item C, I'm getting, well, all throughout the document, I'm getting rid of the word "the" before TNFD. I am on C and D, and anywhere else in the document, I will change design builder to not be capitalized. It will be small letters, just to be consistent. On the very last paragraph on page 7, under submittal requirements, I'm missing the quotation mark for the other side of the title. I have request for, it's just punctuation.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
On the very last, actually it's the second to the last line, I'm going to put apostrophes, quote marks, quotation after the word district. Because I'm saying
Oh,
the
gotcha.
title, request for So I have one before the word
You have
request.
open quotes.
I have
no-
open quotes.
No quotes.
No quotes.
Gotcha, okay.
Page 8, very first line, where the X's are, I will put in the word date. That same page, I'm missing a line in between the word district and the next line. There should be another space or blank line, I guess I would call it. Next to the last paragraph, page 8, I'm getting rid of the word and it'll just say lump sum fee.
Under a fee proposal.
Yes.
Yeah. And then on 10, I'm getting rid of the words "the" before TNFD. And then on 11, item B, I'm saying the following documents are available from previous studies and can be found on TNFD's website, www.tnfd.org. And then I'm
And you're
going to
just going
list
to-
the survey, I'm going to list all of those that are there, but I'm going to delete the links.
Okay.
And then on the very last page, I'm going to just put, where the X's are that are highlighted, I'm going to put in the word date.
Wherever you put those, you're still leaving highlighted. Yep,
Highlighted, so that
still.
we know we can go and
We just need to adjust
Just
those.
fill that in.
Yeah.
find it,
Now, were
yeah.
you changing the word should to shall?
Oh, well, I'm even wondering if that needs to be there. And the reason that I'm saying that is it's already on the very first page.
So you think I'll eliminate all?
What does everybody think?
You're talking C,
C.
the proposal, right?
I mean,
Pre-submittal conference.
we're repeating it.
I agree with you with respect to repetition, because oftentimes you change one, but you miss the other.
And that's what I don't like, right.
And I think being on the very first page, under responsive, pre-proposal
Proposal
meeting,
meeting.
it's pretty clear that that's important to us.
Yeah, the first 3 items are basically the most important. You got an invitation, you've got a pre-proposal meeting, and you've got a response that they're supposed to give us. So when we duplicated it, it makes it difficult. So I was thinking, let's get rid of C,
Mhm.
but I will move her address
Okay.
to that very first paragraph.
So you're eliminating the text of
C,
C.
correct. Because it's a repeat of item 2.
Yeah.
But I'm going to move her name and address and her email address
Up to that
up
same
to
paragraph.
that same paragraph.
That makes sense.
Very good. All right.
So with any luck, I wonder if I'll be on 9 pages instead of 10, I bet I am.
You will, because just
Because we're getting
eliminating
that.
the URL,
Right.
save your page.
Yes.
Okay, I make a motion that we accept the draft request for qualification/proposals document. With the changes discussed.
With adjustments.
Before we do that, I should get rid of the red.
Yes.
Yes.
Get rid of this.
Yeah.
And it'll just have a draft watermark, and I will leave TNFD letterhead, because the original, when it's finalized, will go
Okay.
on. But I'll put the draft watermark.
So
I
we
should
have a motion.
probably say draft
We have a
with a
motion.
date.
You gotta have a
I'm
second.
sorry.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
I'll let them then.
Discussion.
Now you
Okay,
can.
discussion. I still would like to put the date.
Okay,
I'll say draft from meeting on 7/11.
sure. I think it's important to date the document, just
So we'll see.
make it
Very
easier for us to follow.
Draft from meeting on 7/11.
Put draft in the date.
Draft and date, okay,
Yes.
that's all right. Draft and the date.
Any other discussion?
I think it's a good product.
Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Great job, Lisa.
The,
It's
Thank you,
everybody,
thank
it's not
you.
just me, I'm just
No.
doing the typing.
Right now, you're bringing a lot more experience-based knowledge to the table than, this is not my strong point of it.
I think it's important that we recognize the work that you've done to get us to
Absolutely.
this point, Lisa, so
No
thank you very
question.
much.
Yeah.
No,
Yes.
No question.
Yeah, so you're gonna stay around all winter too, right?
She's going to be available via Zoom and call-in.
the time difference in
TikTok.
Maui is a little bit different.
So they right out to lunch.
It's weird watching football games in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
Is there any other business we need to address this evening?
Put the minutes on the table, we got that. Are you going, am I giving this to the commissioners tomorrow night, or were you going to show up as the chair, or what do you want?
I should be able to be here tomorrow night.
Just thinking as the chair, we're trying to keep that delineation if we can.
And I'm gonna send this out to everyone on the committee tonight, including Kat.
So Kathy will provide it to the
As
commissioners.
part, yes,
If
she'll bring it as
She
part of the
doesn't, I
packet.
will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'll really just be there. You said you were going to come as well, Paul?
You know, only if necessary.
Okay. But
So-
just to answer any questions?
Yeah. So you can speak on that, and as the chair of the committee,
Yeah.
you're comfortable with that part?
Yeah.
Okay, I just
Will
would,
it be early in the agenda?
I can reorganize
I
this
sent out the
agenda.
agenda today, but we can.
Yeah, I saw it.
But he's the chairman, he
Yeah.
can arrange it
I
any way
can
he wants.
rearrange it.
All right, if you arrange it early, then I'll be happy to
Yeah.
come.
What time does it start?
Alright.
5:30,
5:30?
5:30, yeah.
same place, same time.
I can't be, I'll be in Boston.
Alright.
Well, if nothing else, then we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for being here.
Comment, correspondence, chief's report? Yeah, I'll move it before the chief's reports.
Yeah, because he's pretty long-winded.
Have you officially retired?
Actually, we've shrunk that down
Yes,
considerably.
well, I have a home business, and so the last few years.
Yeah,
I've been
because
doing
it's
work
number
with
5
my
after the
regular
chief's
home
report, so yeah,
business.
I'll move it before
I've
the
had the
chief's
business
report
for
because
years,
of the
but I
people.
didn't quit, I retired from
That's
the
the easy
company
one.
that I used to
It's
have.
just moving up one block.
Back in 2019, actually. And I did a lot of work as a consultant.
Adjourned at
Yeah, I did a lot
6:58.
of work as a consultant, but now I'm kind of like